Hey, welcome everyone. Think we have slowly a small quorum uh, filling up. Kevin, if you want to start, kick us off the agenda, we can
Yeah,
start.
so yep. So welcome everybody. My name's Kevin Leach, and we have Rajesh here as well. I'm just going to do a quick little intro on my side. I am the leader of the customer success team here at PDSVISION. I've got about 15 years of real world manufacturing from welding, machining, programming, quality control, a little bit of everything, and then 25 plus years of design using Creo products and PTC products. So I'm just going to be one of the people speaking. Rajesh is going to do most of the talk today, and I'll kind of let him do his intro, and we'll get started.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. So we have this short agenda for you. So as you can see, hopefully we will we get to cover all these topics and stay on time. Let me just go to the next slide here. So a little bit about myself. I play the role of a digital transformation architect at PDS Vision. My name is Rajesh Bola Pragada. I've been in this space of product development for about 20 years, as you see here. Most of that was with PTC, playing many roles. Started off in the consulting division, then did some product development, also ran the cloud business unit for some time, and then chose to come back again back into the field. So I started my career in the ECAD space, both developing, authoring applications, and then building products using those solutions. So that's my background, and I've been fortunate to kind of take that experience and try to learn the same processes around the industrial manufacturing space, and then medical device and other places, right, where I've used the knowledge on the high electronics and high tech, and try to learn more about other types of product development. And that's been my experience. And what I like doing is understanding how the various challenges that today companies face, right, with increasing product complexity, or dynamic supply chains, or for instance, an evolving workforce, and how we can bring technology to bear to help address some of these challenges. With that, I also want to introduce PDS Vision. So PDS Vision is the largest global reseller of PTC technology. So as you can see on the top left here, we're a global company that has a revenue of, as you see here, annual revenue of about 120 million euros. We have a strong base of technical expertise, about more than 440 employees, and a strong history, right, about more than 2 decades. So PDS Vision, as a company, was born in back in in the late 90s, and then over the last few years, we've kind of acquired a lot of other consulting companies in this space, or resellers in this space, right? So that's where all the expertise comes from. And if you can, as you can see here on the right hand side, we have over 4,000 customers, right, spread across in these different domains, where we have industry experts who come from these fields, and we've been able to help orchestrate their processes and help them with adopting the technology. And just a few logos on the right hand side. And what we do for our customers is we want to go beyond just being a value like a reseller, right, providing you software, but we want to understand, be your trusted advisor. And therefore we've built a whole set of services to complement the best in class technology that is out there, right? So when we take the closed loop, we provide assessment services, which I'll be talking about a little bit today. And then as part of the customer success organization, Kevin leads a group of experts who do a lot of training, some CAD consulting and all that, right? And we help companies when they acquire new businesses and so forth with migration of content into a single source of truth, provide managed services to be able to manage the infrastructure itself, right? The system administration that is needed and so forth. So that's what how we help our customers. And like in this last piece over here, we operate out of 13 different geographies. So we can give you that global touch, but also have that local flavor with, for you, right, where we can meet you at your point of service, and you can see those locations here highlighted in the map. Um, just one more thing I wanted to say before we go further is, just bring up this one. Yeah. So this webinar that you are on is the getting your digital house in order. So on our website, you can actually find all our webinars. Actually, when you go to pdsvision.com and you click learn, you have both the events and the webinar on demand. So the events page, I guess my computer stopped responding to me. Right. So yeah, so the events page will show you all the upcoming webinars that we have. We recommend that you subscribe to this page or bookmark this page and sign up for these events. You can also access all the previous events by going to the webinar on demand page that's also available under learn, and you will have access to all the previous webinars that we have done, right? And there's a rich set of content here around various PTC products, some of the new domains like software engineering, requirements management, and so forth, systems engineering, and so forth. So I would highly recommend that you check this out. All right. Thanks, Kevin. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, so this webinar today is get your digital house in order, and basically it's always a journey, right? Like you don't just say, oh, we're going to be digital and flip a switch and off you go. So the first part of that journey is what's the current state of your digital engineering, right? And how do you define that? So Rajesh?
That's a good question there, Kevin. It's been one that has been an interesting one, right? Where I found uh, um, the state of maturity of the industry itself, right? Being in different states, especially when you also like look at it from different dimensions, right? Whether they're like a large Fortune 500 company or somewhere in the mid cap space or small cap space, right? So each one seem to have some of the similar challenges, no matter their size. And I'll kind of like look at this from three different, let's say, pillars, right? Like technology, people, and process. As we know, like there's been a tremendous amount of advancement, especially on the technology front, right? Windchill as a platform that PTC provides, which is one of the market leading PLM solutions, has come a long way, right? I remember working on it when it was still in version 6.26 and so forth. That's where I started, and now they're on the latest long-term release, which is on 13, right? And that roadmap itself, they've kind of expanded or brought in a lot of new features. And then obviously there's on the people front, both in our customers, they're hiring a lot more the younger generation, and there's a transformation in the people within the industry, right? So, and what technology they would like to use and how they want to use, and also the processes themselves, right? How mature are processes when we talk about, let's say, change management, part management, or the access to digital twin, right, across the enterprise. So what I see in my years of experience is there's usually, these are the four big blocks, right? There's a lack of visibility to information, even though engineering develops rich content in terms of the 3D model. What ends up being transported to the other functions are probably a simplified drawing, right? And that digital twin that is generated in engineering, what ends up happening is people tend to recreate a lot of that data, right? Even a couple of days back, we were talking to a customer who had basically, even though they were digitized, they had a lot of disconnected systems, which is the second point, right? And their engineers were having to re-enter the same information in three different systems. And this is not productive in any way. And sometimes when you take information out of the system, right, and create one-off versions of it, they tend to have their own life, right? They tend to take their own life, where if I export some information as Excel, then people tend to make changes to it, And then what ends up happening is this third one, which is there could be mistakes being made because of the manual entry, or suddenly somebody discovers there's a late change and they have to go through all that process to incorporate that late change, right? And that's what hampers mainly all the cross domain collaboration that could occur if people were working out of a single source of truth. And I see this still in this day and age, when people are talking about AI and how it's replacing the takeaway for me, as I see, is there are still probably a lot of companies and industries where their internal tools and processes are still probably needs a lot of improvement, or there is areas of improvement in that space. Right. So, and wanted to show this slide, right, and basically kind of explaining that same thing I was talking about. Excel being transported, they have either PDM and ERP systems that are disconnected, so people are exporting information from one to another, or for instance, even requirements are not being managed or managed in their own separate sphere, right? And there's no traceability between one type of content to another. And therefore, as quality engineers or others who are involved in this process, right, procurement, who need access to this information, they find themselves oftentimes like repeating or duplicating this tasks and information across different systems. So, and this leads to people just spending a lot of their, let's say, I'll call it unproductive time, right? Searching for information or asking each other, or even sometimes I've heard sneakerware, right? People have to walk up to somebody else to gather, right? And these are things that some have negative consequences, which as you're hiring the younger force, what they will see is information being thrown across the wall, right? It's still just a digitized filing cabinet system, but then with this younger generation that is used to more like agile kind of ways, right? Either Slack, like from SMS, we've kind of evolved to like Slack kind of systems. People want to use those discussion forums to get work done, and they're not used to sending an email, picking up a phone. They want to work in this more digitized form, right? And it leads to inefficiencies. It leads to duplication of data, and a lot of these things that you see on this slide.
So Rajesh, some of the things that I've noticed through my time in manufacturing is, we talk about these disconnected piece parts, and we're going to companies like you, and we talk to them, and they're, hey, we're on this digital road and we're pushing towards it and we want to do it and we think we're there. And the first couple questions I'll ask are, well, that's great. In your engineering processes, how are you guys doing your design reviews? And they're like, oh, we get 3 or 4 of the guys together, we bring the drawings in, we mark them all up, and then somebody will take them back, religiously and fix them and put them back in the system. And I'm like, okay, that's the way it's been going on for 20 plus years. But what happens with those markups and those red line drawings and things like that? What are people doing with them? And they're like, well, we kind of try to keep track of them, but that's, one of those things we'll end up, having problems with. And I'm like, the systems are built today that you can do the design review in-house. And that would, that's like the first trip up that I've come to. And then the next one is in the quality control. And that file cabinet looks super familiar, because ultimately for me, as one of my avenues of workings, I was a quality control manager, and we religiously would get a drawing in. It'd be released, we'd mark it all up, make balloons, make our Excel spreadsheets, print them all out, get them all ready, check the part, throw it in the file cabinet. But then what would happen is somebody would change a rev, or somebody would update something, or something would change, and we were like the last ones to know. So, we'd always have this misconnection and always trying to chase that information. So I just kind of wanted to, put my little 2 cents into the slides you had. I thought that they really hit home to me. So, we get all that. What should companies do from here? What's next?
Yeah, it's a good point, right? Like, so I think it's not that people are not aware of these issues, but we did a seminar, a webinar actually on the 18th of September, right? This was on engineering.com, where we talked about how to measure the success of your digital transformation, right? And in that, we talked about mainly the space of digital thread or digital transformation, right, in this space itself is pretty vast. And as you can see in this pain matrix, there could be various things that are hurting or impacting the efficiency of the organization, and some may be low-hanging fruit that can be fixed easily, and the other things probably are larger gaps, more critical, right, and so forth, and maybe needs to be addressed. So one of the things I just spoke about is just this whole part reuse and part inefficiency, right? The cost of having to spend engineering effort, right, if we don't have a good system to find out existing parts, this can be quite high, right? So then there's enough technology. It's not like we don't have technology to address that. There's enough technology today that's available at our disposal to kind of address this issue, right? Because otherwise we are spending unnecessary engineering time. If this is kind of going into the inventory, then we are stocking probably the same part twice, and that storage cost and all that can become high, right? And when there's an incident, your whole impact analysis itself becomes large. So I think the first thing obviously to do is to kind of have this notion of, okay, from the different processes and people that interact, what are the biggest pain points, right, that is hurting, let's say, our overall goal or our efficiency, right, and what we want to do. So I think having a sense of this across the industry will be helpful, and then they can work with, let's say, software vendors or providers, right, to see what technology is already available out there to address these pain points, and then create like a roadmap. So I think just creating this pain matrix is a good starting point, right? And what we can, like I said, after that is, even today, from a maturity standpoint, what I see is a lot of companies, even though they're digitized, they have like really powerful CAD applications. They still store that in either simplified systems like OneDrive or files, like in the file systems itself, right? And therefore, collaborating with that becomes hard. So even a basic place to start with in this digital thread journey is to like bring your, when we talk about bringing your digital house in order, is to just improve on the maturity scale around data management, right? So it's not only about like version controlling the data, but how am I actually how is the enterprise actually gaining value from this data, right? So it should not be only left with an engineering for the and an improvement with an engineering, but how do I expand that access or transcend beyond engineering, right? So how do I how do I share this information with others, and then how do I maybe go even outside the boundaries of the organization, for instance, with my suppliers and so forth, right? How do I actually interact with them? So I think just setting this up would be a good maturity point, right, to have to stay and not end with that, right? So and the second step from there, if once we have that deployed and that under control, would mean we can then go on to the next step, which is expanding on that PLM process capability network to maybe enable enterprise change, right, where we are incorporating steps to do a tooling change, or incorporate steps to actually also notify and make sure we are have some control around documentation change that needs to happen, right? And then tie that back to all the requirements that drive basically the system design itself. So there's basically the roadmap that one should put in place. And the reason I bring this up as well is oftentimes we find customers, right, who are stuck in this space, and then they're either running still outdated systems, right, from a technology standpoint, or have not really looked at what else can we do. But even though they have these needs, they're oftentimes like implementing in siloed applications that are not connected, right? And that causes again a cost for integration of these systems and so forth, right? When you can avoid all of that and manage everything in one single system itself, right? So that way they can take advantage of the data being connected, and using that to drive the process itself, right? So that people are not searching for information and so forth. So that's one thing. And then slowly, as they progress through this framework, they can get to the actual thing that provides dividends, if you will, right? One of the pain points I highlighted in the earlier slide deck was about part classification. So what you can see here is once we get to this maturity, we have all these enterprise parts. We are able to do classification on those parts, right? This is a great way now to be able to then report and see how much of my existing let's say part repository is being reused in new designs, right? If you have a target, if you set targets for it, and if you're able to now measure that, right, you can then advance in that goal of trying to increase that reuse, right? Oftentimes also couple this with processes with the new part request, which has all the right checks and balances, so that people are not like willy-nilly creating parts, right, without really checking with like maybe a librarian or so forth if within the company, to ensure that there's a good governance and good control around this process. So these are certain things that what companies can do, right? And really where we'll come to is where getting to this utopia, right? So I wanted to just stop there, and these are some things that we can do, and let me just summarize. So identifying the pain, uh, scoring that pain, right, like with how important or how critical it is to the company, and then they're working on a roadmap for saying, okay, how would we address that? And we can help with some of the dependencies that exist between these features, right? And in what order and sequence should we kind of like go about enabling these?
It's I appreciate the process here and the steps here. And like I said, coming from my background, I saw it all the time, and I still see it today when I go out to visit customers. Like you said, they've got Windchill, or they've got they've got their start in their PDM world, and maybe that's not even up to snuff. They don't have quality putting stuff back into documents. So maybe it's just the engineers working within that Windchill environment, right? Like
Hmm.
expanding that is the first step, and then kind of going from there. So I followed along, and this is all great. So what would be the future of this? What's the next big state of this?
Yeah. So as you can see, right, as we lay out probably this interface, I kind of did a preview of this slide, right? That those same challenges that earlier we talked about, where when you have disconnected systems or not have visibility, what we will slowly move towards is this utopia of solving all those problems, right? Where in any product development company, at least these processes are going to be something that one would follow, right? And I think there's probably very few in like unless you're a small 5-member team or so forth, most industrial machine manufacturing companies have some of these processes within the company, right? Of an engineering team that is doing design, they're actually sharing probably some detail with a manufacturing engineer who's creating the process plan, the work instructions, right, required to manufacture that same product and bring that to life, right? And then there's going to be procurement that's having to deal with where do we get this different parts that are not made in-house. And so the nice thing with being able to connect and all of them working off of a single system is that there's early visibility to the data. Procurement can start their process early ahead, don't have to wait for the CAD to mature, right? And so forth. So they can kind of like start that process a little bit earlier. As change happens as well, right? Then we can include or do that assessment to say, okay, who are all the other departments that need to be informed about the change that is coming from upstream, so they can kind of like work on maybe documentation, right? Technical information. They can work on their step. Let's say manufacturing engineers can work on updates that need to occur for maybe tooling or process plan. All of this can be done in a single system, right? And that's the utopia where everybody's working off a single system. They get to see the data immediately, and the system's capabilities can help reduce the inefficiencies, right? For searching for information, there'll be visual cues that the product gives you, and you can see all the changes and compare. Use tools like Creo View to compare, visually compare maybe changes that are happening. Oftentimes, which are done through Excel reports or Redline reports and all that, right? We can just transform the way people work.
Yeah, so you made a couple nice points here, and I'm all about that early information. I did CNC programming, I did the quality, And that was never, it was always the problem. They would be making changes, and in the meantime, I'd be programming, thinking I was all set and ready to go. And they're designing and redesigning and fixing and changing, and then I get this notice at the end, and I've just wasted, a day or a half a day in the programming side of things. And the same thing with quality. The
Mm.
earlier they're introduced to the updated information, the better off they are. They're everybody's trying to get this job done, and we all have the same time limit, and we got to get it finished. But you know, as that information gets to them instantly and early, that is the, you use the word utopia, but that's that's every company is trying to do that, right? Every company is trying to be more efficient. So I'm with you 100%.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
after all
Yeah.
this, what are the big benefits you have found along the way once this starts coming together?
Yeah, good question, right? I just wanted to mention one more thing, right? Like we said, we're all used to this working in this, right? And I remember one more, just an anecdote from my experience, right? As a consultant, when we were implementing the software itself, there would be always this changing requirements, right? And it takes time for each group uh, to complete their task. And when we're all up against a deadline, we want to be empathetic to each other's, right? And sometimes you don't see that until you go see it from the other side, right? Like for instance, even like you said, quality, right? They have to probably create all their failure modes, their block diagrams, right? Reliability block diagrams, create their forms for how they would take field reports and all that. So knowing what the product looks like, what the makeup or the bomb looks like, will help them start working on that simultaneously, right? Rather than it being purely sequential. And that's, I think, like an area, right, where if it's purely sequential, there's very little room to improve than process efficiency. So you asked what are the benefits, right? So here are in that pillar earlier we saw how like product, let's say reuse can, there could be a big impact, like a negative consequence and so forth. So what we have seen at customers, where after going through this chain and expanding beyond PDM itself, right? Here are some examples. As you can see, I'll just call upon a few, right? Like we are working with NIDEC as well right now. They were able to like actually reduce the cost of poor quality, right? This is by ensuring that they had proper visibility into those problem reports. They had traceability to the product, the parts and products that were impacted previously. They didn't, this was disconnected, and it took them a lot of time to assemble that, right? Because it was so manual, it was basically causing them to kind of some of the things would fall through the cracks and have issues. And they were able to reduce that, right, with better system for reporting, better system to record all those, let's say, problem reports, the corrective action for that, or non-conformances, corrective action, and the change process itself, right? They had better visibility into it, and they knew exactly who had the next step, and even the person who had to execute it, right, had all the right information at their disposal to make a decision. So just to highlight one example, right? And as you can see on the spectrum, it has a wide varying impact or benefits that one could gain, that ultimately either helps improve time to market or revenue, or help in reducing costs itself, right, and savings, and help with the bottom line. So let me go. And then another piece in our engineering.com that we talked about was, in order to make all again, we understand that in order to make the case, right, for the none of this is just without any cost, right? Sometimes you may have to buy extra seats of license. There's probably some implementation services cost to enable that capability and so forth, right? So what in our engineering.com as well, what we talked about is one of the ways to measure success is to have this upfront, right? Is to have basically the cost understood well, create like an ROI, so that we can kind of like see if we are moving in the right direction. And a lot of times like today, because of the improvement in technology, right, the cost of implementation with accelerators and so forth has brought the cost down so much, that easily with a lot of these improvements, you can break even in less than 6 months, right? These are none of this, we're actually developing software from scratch. A lot of the capabilities exist out of the box, right? Therefore, implementation timeline also is pretty small. So something to think about.
And then how does PDS Vision jump in here? How do we go and help and try to help guide some of this and even do some of that service work?
That's a good point. So that's where I wanted to bring up this piece, right? Just as a continuation from the previous slide. A lot of times, like I know people may have had experience with previous versions of the product itself, right? Whether it be upgrade or, for instance, enabling change management, right? And they might have had an experience where even with prior companies in their previous life, it could have taken them probably a little bit long, right? It was just based on the maturity. Now these products have matured so much that an upgrade can easily be completed in 2 months, right? So it's not a year-long effort. For instance, to enable the various change management workflows that are needed, right, to cater to change request or the change notice itself. We have kind of added, as PDS Vision, with our 20 years of experience, packaged some of these things that we've seen occurring often, right, into industry packages. So think of these as accelerators, and the goal of these accelerators are primarily one to quickly align with the needs of various organizations. And what we have found is they almost address 80% of the need, right? And there's probably only a 20% specific variation that is needed, and they actually add a tremendous amount of value on top of the out of the box software itself. And the primary reason why we are doing this is um, we can reduce the cost of implementation, de-risk implementation, right? So it's not a science project, and the thing is we can use this to promote, let's say, best practices that we have seen, right? Most companies have like a standard process for their first release, and there are like only certain number of like approval steps in that, and there's no reason to reinvent that wheel, like things like that. So these are things that we've created. We've created them for like industry specific like versions of it, so they're tailored for that specific vertical. And on top of it, we've also added, so these are the pillars in by, or we can also do this in a phased approach. And what we've also added is some of these add-ons or tune-ups, right, which I'll talk a little bit more about, like with health assessments, or some of the packages like with our my PDS search, and things like that, right? That we offer that helps make a usage and adoption of the PLM platform itself so much more easier within the enterprise. That's a lip. And then here are some of the other things, right? And maybe I wanted to ask you, Kevin, a little bit, if you could speak a little bit about the training, right? I know you've done a few engagements also recently to help transform companies, right, with our mentoring and training, where specifically companies are dealing with transformation, maybe from SolidWorks to Creo, or they're hiring a lot of young engineers who are getting into this, right? And we've kind of helped them start the right way with understanding how to efficiently use the product and so forth. So maybe could you speak a little bit about the training and mentoring that we offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, one of the things as customer success manager on my end, I run into all the time is I'll have a customer with, it starts out as a simple question like, hey, we're having some issue with this, or we're having some issue with that, or it's a little slow, or something's not right. And they'll send some models or drawings, and I'll kind of go back and go back through them and kind of figure out, what's going on. And what I have found, and I've been doing training and consulting and for myself for since 2005, I think, or 2004, and designing 10 years before that, manufacturing before that. I kind of have that built-in tool to be able to do that. And I have a group of guys that work with me and for me that probably over 100 plus years of CAD experience and background from different companies and techniques. So we've learned good stuff and bad stuff along the way. And what we have found mainly is the software, the CAD side of the software has gotten so much easier to use that it almost doesn't create better models. It's easier to make bad models. So over the last 10 years, I was just talking about this the other night. Over the last 10 years, I found that the modeling practices have gotten a little worse and a little worse and a little worse. So I'll first figure out kind of what they're doing and how they're doing things, and then try to help, guide them into a better direction. And then, of course, training comes into that as well with, maybe it's not just mentoring. And I've got 5 brand new, guys coming out of college, and they coming from SolidWorks, or they're coming from a different CAD package, and they want to get them trained up. So we will do anything from mentoring, consulting on a per hour thing, or just, hey, could you take a look at this, to 2, 3, 5 day, come in, really dig into your modeling practices, and come back out with an assessment that says, hey, this is really what you should be trying to accomplish, and where you're at today, and where you need to get to, and how to get there. CAD in the long run is kind of been devalued, but really that's the heart of the whole process, right? If we don't start out with good CAD, we don't end up with good stuff down the road, and reusable, and that's really kind of our goal, is to clean that up and make it better. So everything from, like I said, mentoring, consulting, but basic training to advanced training to sheet metal and manufacturing, and got a huge group of guys with a lot of experience.
Yeah, I think I remember when we did this thing at the customer together, right? I remember you telling uh, even some of the products, right? Like for instance, both the Creo NC, or for instance the Creo simulation, right? They've come, they've improved so much that it's worth re-looking at it, right? Even just the simulation story, people tend to have answers, and then the engineering team sends all the drawings out, right? We can bring some of that analysis up front. So maybe you can touch a little bit about that, and how the new Creo simulation can help maybe alleviate some of the things that normally would only needed to be done with a specialist, right?
Yep. So ultimately, two different things there. The NC part, I find when I go out to visit customers, they talk about, well, we looked at it back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and our guys didn't, buy into it, so we didn't do it. And that's pretty common thought, but it's a short-sighted thought, in that, one, the software has gotten 100 times better. They went into a partnership with a company called ModuleWorks, and really sped up the process for high-speed milling, and really taken on some of these new adaptive manufacturing techniques that weren't available 10 years ago. So if you, again, like you said, if you haven't looked at it in 10 years, it's huge. It's much better. You're associated to the model. You're associated to Windchill. You're going to get that information. It's not like you're throwing the model out of Creo into some other software, and then having to start over when something gets changed, right? That one little switch between being associated and not associated is worth every step.
Mm-hmm.
On the simulation side, it's kind of the same thing. We went out, PTC went out and got a relationship with Ansys directly themselves, and they built in some products. Because in the past, what would happen is you'd have designers designing away, kind of working what they think is a good idea, and then traditionally, you had a slide earlier where the guy was throwing PLM to ERP over a wall. Well, that's kind of how CAD analysis worked, right? I would get pretty close to my model. I think I was pretty good. I'd throw it over the wall, and then there's usually 1 or 2 guys in that company that are their analysis specialists, right? Like that's all they do all day long. So along the path, what we found is that you can bring that analysis into an earlier stage of the product at the designer engineer level, and really take advantage of cleaning up some of those iterations, so there's less of that thrown over the wall, right? Because if I throw it over the wall and he's got to throw it back, and then I got to fix it and throw it back, and we got 20 or 30 guys all throwing to 1 or 2 analysis guys, them guys are overwhelmed, overworked. It's not efficient. We can clean that efficiency up by getting there earlier. So a lot of these techniques that have grown, and it's in every part of it, right? It's in doing animations for marketing, or it's doing rendering for marketing. It's doing cabling and piping. All of these tools have gotten a ton better. And what we find is most customers have kind of said, "Oh, this is the way we've been doing it," and
Mm.
they're just busy trying to get their job done, and haven't had a chance to really take on that. What's new, what's going on, how could this help?
Correct. Yep. So with that, I wanted to kind of like go into this, right? So what we you'd asked, like, how can we help along with our offerings? What we have introduced recently is we have these different levels of assessments. So we are actually offering like our health assessment, right? Down here, I'll start down here with our Winchell health assessment, right? We're offering this for free. What we do, we in these different levels, right? There on the time, like basically the effort it takes, and the scope is what we do within these assessments, right? And how much involvement from the customer side. So I know you talked about Creo assessment a little bit, but like our Winchell assessments itself, right? We are offering that for free, where we come in. We would like to look at your system, your Winchell system, if you have one, right? If you're using one or even other PLM systems, we can kind of like work with you on that to understand how what is the maturity of the system, right? What processes you have, how you have set it up, because to the point we were making earlier, the product itself has come a long way, right? A couple of things from here that we are able to quickly identify is there an opportunity to decustomize, right? Maybe there are product capabilities that are there out of the box that previously were only you were able to address it through some customization, so we can help decustomize, right? And the benefit of that is it reduces the cost of ownership, right? You don't have this technical burden, and it doesn't slow down your upgrade and so forth, right? And then we can also look and see, okay, what performance improvements we can do, so that if certain processes or certain capabilities, right, maybe visualization is not working at the pace as you expect, so we can kind of figure out how can we lay out a plan to improve that. Right, so things like that from a health assessment, we are doing that. We're offering this for free. Do reach out. Right, I have some information to contact me, or you can reach out to your account reps, right, to find out how we plan this. Another level is just the process assessment, right? So if you're still doing change outside of the system and you want to bring it within Winchell, we can sit down with you. We did a couple of them recently, right? For another customer, where we sat down to take notes about their current process, their paper process, or even process in other systems, right? And sometimes these applications are probably retiring and they don't have a roadmap, and you're looking to bring that into Winchell, right? So we can sit down and understand who are the participants in that process, what the process steps look like, and give you a view of how to port that into Winchell, right? And minimize the customizations that are required, so that one obviously work with you to kind of like think about process reengineering, so it kind of fits within the how Winchell sees the same process, right, but still meet all your business needs. And the last piece that we have is what is called this product development roadmap assessment, right? To think of this as how do I expand Winchell across the enterprise. And so it has like great capabilities to do CAD data management and change, but it also has a robust quality management system, right? So we could address the needs of a different organization within the company. And all of this, if they're all using one single system, obviously it goes without saying that it's kind of you're improving your return on investment, right? Rather than having to have different IT systems, having dedicated teams for each of that, you can consolidate all of it, right? And that itself will pay for the implementation and all that for all these new capabilities, right, within the organization. So we have these PDRAs that you can schedule with us. They're usually 2 to 3 weeks long, right? And it involves both of these involve some interviews that we will do with your subject matter experts who are process, let's say, owners or process experts or continuous improvement leads, right, on what the current state is, what improvements you want to do, what are the deficiencies in that process, and then lay out a plan to say, okay, how do we improve on that. So these are certain things, Kevin, as you said, like where how PDSVISION, both with our accelerators, our assessments, right? We can help our customers. And something that we're doing now is that we are offering this our Winchell health assessments for free. So I would I would encourage like our customers to take advantage of that. And it could be a simple thing to kind of find out is an update good enough for me versus a full-blown upgrade, right? To maybe move up the chain. If I'm using SolidWorks, let's say 2022 or 2020, and I want to move to 2022. So do I really need to do a whole upgrade, or will an update be, right? We can answer even simple questions like that. So that's about it. And then here are some of the next steps, right? So like I said, please do schedule your assessment. Take advantage of the option we have now going on. And I said the whole goal here is to kind of advance in this digital thread, right? And the key thing is mainly the bottom line here, so that what you want to like achieve for everybody aspires for is for the right person to have the right information, right, at the right context, because that's what like greatly helps reduce, let's say, the decision making time, so that people are not searching for information, and they have the right information at their disposal. With that, I think my last slide is how you can contact both Kevin and I. This is my email. We'll share details of Kevin as well. And then you, of course, can reach out to your account rep, right? So with that, I'll probably end, and then maybe we can open it up for any questions. And if you have any questions, feel free to type it in our Q&A panel, and then we can take it from there. So I think Oscar, there's one question I see. Oscar, you had asked, I'm interested in learning more about the assessment. So yeah, we'll reach out to you, Oscar. We can kind of go through these various assessments that we do, both the Creo, Winchell, right, and process assessment. And and even if you want to do the full-fledged PDRA, so we can kind of schedule some time. Oscar will reach out to you, kind of explain what these different assessments do, and find a time to work with you on that. So let me go to the last slide, just for others who probably need contact information. I'll just put mine up here. With that, I'll just let's say we'll wait for questions in the forum, and then if not, we can end the call a little early. Kevin, anything else you want to add as people are thinking about questions before they're typing them up? Anything you want to add? About the assessments? I'm sure you had some experience at the Creo assessment, probably has discovered valuable insights.
Yeah. So like I said, we're doing them today. We have our group of companies that we work with on a constant basis. We're always trying to help figure a way. So we can do a couple things. Obviously, I went through and I can go through, and a couple of the guys can go through and manually look at this stuff. But we've also built some custom tools on our side to really take large chunks of data and sort through and find things like weak references or weak dimensions, and buried features and suppressed objects, and all of those little things that we all, anybody that's been using the CAD package for a long time would take for granted. Well, like I said, what we find is a lot of the younger guys have come from different packages and maybe don't have that same commitment to model, quality, and it all starts with that model. So reach out. Even in the latest version of Creo 11, they've added some new tools called performance analysis tools, or performance report, for large assemblies to kind of break down where the problems are. And, you might not be ready to go to the Creo 11, but you can have somebody on your side, a CAD admin or us, to run that yourselves, right? And just don't check it in or save it. You can just run it and kind of go from there. But if I can take over the screen, I will share my contact information as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let
me stop sharing here.
Yeah, let me see if I can. So Kevin Leach, Technical Director of the Customer Success, and I'm going to zoom in if I can on that a little bit. And that's my email down there as well. So
awesome.
Feel free, reach out. Starts with an email. We can go from there, and I can get a hold of Rajesh when needed. We can work this out and get you on the right path.
Excellent. So I don't see any other questions on the thing. We'll stay, both Kevin and I will stay on the forum for some more time. If not, like you have our contact address, feel free to reach out to us or your account rep. And I would, again, like, uh, um, uh, I would encourage you to take advantage of our promotion that we have, right? If you're struggling with issues with your windshield system, and you don't know who to contact, we have our health assessment, right? That we are offering for free. Like to engage with you, we could do that analysis, right? At least it will be worthwhile. Through this exercise, you'll have a documentation, right, of your configuration and some steps to kind of look at, to address those let's say those challenges that you're facing. All right. With that, if there's no questions, then we can end a little early. Thanks for your time again. Look forward to
Thanks,
seeing you in our
everybody.
next webinar. Yeah.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Have a